Hey everyone, Joe here at Sportsman's Guide. We're lucky enough to be on the water with Chad Smith, and we're going to poke his brain about why he likes Daiwa, and let's get after it.
Heck yeah.
So Chad, you being a Daiwa guy,
Yeah.
what do you like about what Daiwa's done with the rod category?
I really like the selection that they have. It seems like they've kind of got all the bases covered, especially in the Tatula lineup. You know, you've kind of got that entry-level Tatula line all the way up to the Tatula Elite rods, and you kind of get the whole spectrum with it. It solves a lot of that issue for people looking for those, like that one rod for a specific technique.
Right.
And throughout the Tatula Elite lineup, you've got the regular ones, but you've got the higher end ones. So you've got the unsanded blank and the AGS guides, which are gonna immensely help the sensitivity and lightness of the rod. So like we're kind of sitting here flipping right now, and I've got a 7'5" medium heavy rod and flipping a jig around, and with that unsanded blank and those AGS guides, you've got such a lighter weight rod that I'm able to sit there and kind of shake this rod all day long, shaking that jig in these different weed clumps and stuff like that. You really just don't get any fatigue throughout the day because of that. It's really lucrative in that sense, and just overall sensitivity is a huge benefit for, you know, picking up on those light bites and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
and getting that separation of, was that weed or was that,
Absolutely.
like, you feel a little bit more of that?
absolutely, because sometimes if you don't have that sensitivity, I mean, you can miss a lot of opportunities.
So Chad, with all of these awesome rods that are very technique focused that a lot of the pros have helped develop, what do you say to the guy or gal that just wants to get into a Daiwa rod and they don't know if they want the skipping rod or the pitching rod? Or
Hands down, if I were to pick two rods, one baitcaster, one spinning, it's going to be a 7'3" medium heavy for a baitcaster. I think it's a multi-purpose, covers your bases for about anything. For a spinning rod, a 7 foot to a 7'1" medium action rod. You can do about anything with those two rods.
Yeah. So Chad, I see you got Tatula Elite rods and you got the AGS.
Yep.
How do you decipher when you want to use that AGS rod, that little higher end versus the Elites?
So when I'm deciphering if I want a Tatula Elite with AGS guides or without, I kind of keep it to a general rule of thumb majority of the time, where if I'm working a bait slower or using like a dragging presentation, any kind of finessier style technique, I'm gravitating towards those AGS guides and that unsanded blank for the sensitivity aspect of that. As I get into, you know, maybe some reaction baits or real heavy cover type scenarios like frogging or things along those lines, I'm not so much looking for the sensitivity as much as just having a good rod for that application.
Yep. So Chad, with these awesome technique specific rods that are in the Elite series, what do you say to the person that doesn't really know what technique they're going to go for any given day and they only have a budget maybe for one or two rods?
I think overall, if I were to pick two rods, a baitcaster and a spinning rod to cover all the bases, it's going to be a 7'3" medium heavy for the baitcaster and a 7 to a 7'1" medium for a spinning rod.
Sure.
Overall, those are going to really have you covered for any technique.
Both with power and length.
Yup, exactly.
In the boat.
That one. First bass on the new Tatula 100.
So Chad, do you have a preference on cork versus EVA handles?
That's a good debate. I personally, I'm kind of in between on it. I think you can argue benefits of both. I think one of the biggest characteristics for the cork versus EVA handles is kind of the ability of retaining water. So like during those colder months, I think the cork can be beneficial because it doesn't hold as much water in there, but at the same time, it's not going to be quite as soft and giving as the EVA foam. So kind of dealer's choice there, but that's kind of my 2 cents on those. A lot of the times when you're Texas rigging baits, you've got that hook point buried in the plastic, so you can actually just kind of loop it and put it right here. It's down by the reel and it's on the top side of the rod. So sometimes, you know, if they're on the side of the rod, your line can catch and get hung in them. But this one, it doesn't really ever happen or have the opportunity to. So I don't know, that's kind of just a quick little tidbit, but that's what I like the hook keepers on these rods.
Yeah. So Chad, reel sizes on baitcasters, 150 versus 100. What do you think on that?
The 100 is going to be a smaller frame size, so you're going to get, it's going to be a lot more comfortable in the palm of your hand. But I think a feature that you get with a 150 size is going to be the spool and the line capacity. So I tend to gravitate towards those when it comes to different scenarios where I'm launching a bait, like a frog or, a crankbait, things along those lines.
So Chad, I see you have the SV reel in your hands right now. What do you like about it?
Yeah, the SV spool is pretty revolutionary. I think it's a certain type of spool that actually works really well in like those high resistance scenarios.
Yep.
So, anything like when you're skipping a dock, casting a light bait into the wind, or just kind of any scenario like that, the spool actually acts on the last part of the cast and slows it down, so it's not gonna over spool or get that backlash.
Yeah.
So like for instance, cast it out there, no thumb pressure, and it doesn't over spool on itself. So that's gonna really come in handy for especially like people even learning a bait caster or something like that.
Yeah.
Those backlashes get so frustrating, and I mean you're going through a bunch of line, having to pick knots, and you can really actually waste a lot of money trying to learn that sometimes with going through line like that. And so that's kind of a key feature that I really like about the SV spool. And I mean, I've gotten spoiled with it for these scenarios like skipping docks and things like that.
Yep. All right, Chad. So obviously these rods and reels from Daiwa are loaded with technology, but in your mind, in your eyes, what do you think sets this brand apart from the others, or why do you trust these guys?
I think it's the fact that everything's built from the ground up from the manufacturer. So, you have that consistency and reliability that they've had for years, and it gives me the confidence in just knowing that it's going to last and you're going to get that reliability out of it. And it's consistently been that for years, and they're constantly revolutionizing everything. Oh my gosh. That's a good old dock fish. Got that one on the Tatula XT. 7 foot, medium heavy. It's a great dock skipping rod. $100 price point. Tatula SV.